afternoon, everyone. This is Brian Rowan here, and this is, as Linda said, the third and final webinar on the Measures of Effective Teaching Early Career Grants program. In the first two webinars, we talked about the background and operation of the grants program, the nature of the MET study and the data that came from it, and how to get additional information about the study. By the way, the MET grantee website is now operational, and you can access it through the means that I have showed you in the previous two webinars. You go to the Icpsr homepage, and you will be able to find it from there. Today, we want to give attendees a sense of how people who receive a grant from this program will be able to use MET data inside the virtual data enclave that's being established by Icpsr. So unlike the previous webinars, this one will be hosted by my colleague Leslie Scott. Leslie's a senior survey director at the Institute for Social Research, and she's very familiar not only with the MET data, but also the systems that are being used to disseminate MET data. And for that reason, I've asked Leslie to host this webinar, and I'll turn it over to her now.
Hello to everyone. Today we're covering activities that will occur if you are informed that you've received a grant. First, we will talk about the administrative steps that you and your institute carry out. We'll review the timeline, and we'll discuss what accounts you are required to establish. We'll view the online system where you can create a data use agreement. Next, we will learn about the videos that you might work with. We'll look at a few characteristics of sessions, of videos that are in our library, and we'll view the secure player and the session selection screens. Then we will learn more about the virtual data enclave. We'll look at a sample that shows content in the virtual data enclave, and we'll consider different ways that the VDE and the secure video player might work together if that is relevant to your research. In today's session, we've also left plenty of time at the end to review your questions, and those questions can cover topics from today's session and also the previous sessions. Let's start then with administrative steps that would occur upon award. Just a note that as a recipient of this program, you will gain access to the MET data during a pilot period. This is before other researchers gain access. And our U of M team, working with the National Academy, will work closely with you. We'll facilitate your use of tools and data, and you will be able to provide us with feedback about the longitudinal database that will help us improve the overall system. Let's review the timeline. You're probably familiar with these dates. Proposals are due December 15th. I believe that's a Saturday, and Pacific time midnight is the deadline, so that even extends the time a little into the next day if you're on the East Coast. Reviewers will complete their evaluations over the next weeks, and decisions will be announced on January 31st, 2013. During February, there are several actions to establish contracts and agreements. Knowing this ahead of time, you could actually be preparing proactively so that you're well placed to expedite these actions. One of those is that you'll establish financial subcontracts with the University of Michigan so that you can receive the funds. As part of your initial grant application, you're already submitting a letter of commitment from your institution, and that likely will help you identify correct administrative personnel who are going to help expedite this process as you create your subcontract. Also, during this February time period, awardees will establish a data use agreement that requires IRB approval notice, and you actually can create your IRB applications before you even hear about award if you want to take a proactive step. The data use agreements are created using an online application system, and we'll take a look at it in just a minute. It's after these contracts and agreements are in place that the University of Michigan MET team can give you access to resources. Let me talk just a little bit about the accounts and how they work. If you receive an award, you will receive a UM-sponsored account. This gives you a username and a password, and each member of your research team that's going to access the resources will need to have his or her own sponsored account. We're anticipating there might be up to three members on your research team, and you'll go through a process of obtaining accounts for each individual. Also, each person with unique name and password will receive an M token. And this is a device that generates a unique passcode every 60 seconds. In combination with your unique name login, this passcode provides very good security, assuring that only authorized personnel access our system. You'll create an Icpsr My Data account. It's possible you've already created your Icpsr My Data account. You can create an account from scratch, or you can actually utilize a Google or Facebook credential to create this My Data system. As early as in February as possible, you're going to want to begin filling out and then submitting an online Icpsr data access request application. The purpose of this application is to create an institution-to-institution agreement that's specific to researchers' use of the MET data resources. It's an agreement that's between your institute and the University of Michigan, so it requires an authorized signature from someone who handles contracts at your end, typically someone from either a contracts office or a legal office. If terms in a data use agreement are violated, there are possible sanctions that may be taken to impact your institution's future research funding options. And that's one of the strengths of the agreement. It's one of our best ways to offer protection to the participants that had agreed they would share their data, their videos, with a broad research community. The IDARS system is an application system that's fairly quick to complete and highly intuitive. We'll just go through a few screens here. It's not currently available, and we will make it available for just a short window of time specifically for the recipients of these awards. On the welcome page, you can download a sample agreement document, and in just a minute, we'll take a peek at what that final agreement document can look like. One of the notes here is that you should expect this process requires you to work with others. Typically, you'll work with your IRB office, contract officer, administrators in your own department, and your project team members in order to get this put together. You won't be able to just sit down in one sitting and have everything about it completed. There are several sections that you will need to complete. You can complete modules in any order, and there are ways to track how far you progressed as you worked on your application. Here are a few entry screens. This is one where you describe your research. This might be a place where you can cut and paste text from your original proposal. And the main purpose of this particular area, research description, is to explain why your access to restricted data is justified. The system has a module where you can upload your Irb Approval notice. And again, we suggest you might submit for your Irb approval even before awards are announced. There's a data security plan section. This is where you indicate your willingness to follow security measures to protect the data. Each item list in the plan requires an affirmative answer. I'll give you an example of some of the first items in this list. You need to agree to password protect the computer from which you will access data. You agree that you will not share your password with others. Even if they help you set up your systems, you agree that your IT staff will not have or will not use access to Met resources. You agree to allow unauthorized persons to work with the data. And you agree that you will only access the resource from designated computers in the project office and only those using your assigned IP or IP range. You could think of this maybe in the following way. If you were working in a physical restricted data enclave, then you might travel to the University of Michigan. You might be allowed to work in a secure, locked room. This virtual environment needs to, in many ways, simulate that kind of security, almost as if you were in a physical, restricted place in a location to which you have traveled. Once you have the agreement set up, you obtain your institutional signatures, scan, and upload. Oops. And I was going to show you, but I will not show you a picture. Of a sample agreement. It's a multi-page data use agreement. Once your financial contract is in place, you receive funds, and you have your data use agreement in place, you will be able to begin working with the videos and inside the virtual data enclave. So let's take a look at the video resource. There are over 20,000 classroom sessions that were recorded during the Met first 2-year period. Teachers and parents provided different levels of consent, and we will only disseminate video streams for sessions where parent and teacher consent specifically specifies our ability to disseminate to the broader research community. With that in mind, we currently are working with a limited number of videos that can be shared in the broad research community. Between now and the time you begin working with videos, the counts you're going to see will change. They will increase. We're including some videos from classrooms that do not have scored data in the quantitative files that you'll be working with. Those counts are represented in the third column. The last column shows the number of recorded classroom sessions where you can find scored data in the quantitative files. Let me just give you a few descriptors of data that's in this table so you can better understand how to interpret this. The first row shows that in grade 4, there are 586 ELA sessions that are available. Of those, 471 are for videos where there are scores in the quantitative file. Again, these numbers will increase as more teachers provide consent. Now we're looking at the secure video player. This system is embedded in a web page. The classroom view video provides a panoramic shot showing the full classroom activity. There are some player controls. They allow you to pause the video, adjust audio, and if you desire, you can open that panoramic class view into full screen. The web also includes other things. One is another video called Other View. This is a board view of the classroom. It runs in synchronization with the classroom view, and it gives more clear view of written material the teacher may be putting on the class board. When teachers submitted artifacts, they also show up on this web page as images. In this case, we see an image of an assignment. To select cases, users can either input session IDs or can set up simple queries. And queries allow you to filter on a few but some powerful elements. You can filter on a set of anonymous IDs, including IDs for district, school, and teacher. And you can also filter on grade, subject, year, and if you have a particular teacher in mind, you can filter on their specific class period, which is helpful, especially if they have several class periods. Next, we're going to take a look at the virtual data enclave. The quantitative data is available through this, what we call VDE. It's a virtual desktop. VMware is used to access this virtual desktop. You use your account, which is your unique name and password, and you also need to use your M token to get into this virtual desktop. When you're in the VDE, you have access to data, to statistical programs, and as a research team, you can build a series of folders and resources of your very own that will be there each time you log in and work within your desktop. In this case, we can see on the left side a set of statistical programs that are built into the system. These include SPSS, R, SAS, Stata, and Sudan. You can also open data, and here we see the subfolders for data Brian has discussed in past sessions. There's a folder for section level and a folder for teacher level data. There's another tool that doesn't show up. It's your Airlock, and your Airlock gives you a mechanism for transferring allowable printouts or small files out of the system after each has been reviewed by UMT members to verify that they are allowable. This view shows that there are files for different statistical packets inside the section level folder. So at the start up of your work, you would be able to make a choice of any particular statistical packet format for the first part of your work, and then you would begin to build your systems from there. Some researchers have talked about working with a combination of the quantitative data and the video player. So we're going to conclude just by noting that you might set up your own desktops so that in a split screen you can view your videos and at the same time work with the VDE and carry out some of the quantitative either work or referencing. Those are the basic elements of these resources that we're working with. We want to give you a chance to provide us with questions. And again, those questions may have to do with the use of these resources or topics we've covered in past sessions.
So, thank you, Leslie. We'll move to the Q&A period now, and Leslie and I will attempt to answer whatever questions have accumulated. If you open, Leslie, the bar and go to questions, and open that, let's see, and then just scroll back up to the top. And we'll start in our usual way and do our best to answer questions in the order that they have accumulated. So let's see. It says,
you want me to read and then
okay, that's fine.
I'll let you, Brian, let me know whether you're answering or me.
Why not?
What percentage of the classroom observations conducted in the second year were scored by using the classroom observation instruments FFT class and MQI, including UTOP? Can grantees access the teacher UTOP scores if they request? What percentage of the classroom observation videos from second year would be available to grantees?
So, the exact percentages are difficult to tell you because all the video sessions are scored with the general protocols. Only the subject-specific protocols are being used to score the subjects. There would obviously be some modest amount of missing data, and on the UTOP question, I don't believe we're making UTOP data available. That's a sub-study, and it's not a study that we're making available to grantees.
If I am currently on the job market and don't yet know my location for fall 2013, am I eligible to apply for this grant?
It's a difficult question. The answer to that question depends upon whether or not, A, you are currently eligible to be a principal investigator at your current institution, and B, whether they will let you write an application if you are not going to persist in employment at that institution. So, if you're like a postdoc and you're on your way out, A, postdocs sometimes can't be PIs, and B, I could imagine circumstances under which they would not allow a postdoc who was in their final term to submit a grant. So again, that's a difficult question to answer in any general way. I would be happy to take that question. If you send it to Judy on, we can try to answer the question given your personal circumstances.
Is the IRB with University of Michigan or with our own institutions? This may be in the material, but I cannot remember.
Yeah, you never would have an IRB with the University of Michigan. The University of Michigan doesn't want to be responsible for other people's following of appropriate research procedures. So the IRB of record for your work will be your own home IRB.
What if we have more than 3 researchers on the research team?
Yeah, I mean, we can work on that. That doesn't seem terribly problematic. That's more, what Leslie was talking about or thinking about was more a set of budget parameters than system parameters that we were thinking of when designing the work.
What happens if the PI changes his institution after he receives the MET grant?
Well, that depends on the institution at which the PI was working in the first place. Ordinarily, a grant does not go to a person, it goes to an institution. So the subcontract is between the University of Michigan and the institution the PI works at. The institution where the PI works is designated as the principal investigator, but the grant or the contract, the contractual relationship is between institutions. Usually, when PIs leave, they take their grants with them, but that's not always the case. And so, I can't speak for any particular circumstance because that is up to the institution where the grant has been awarded. I don't think the University of Michigan would have a terrible time with the change of institutions. It would require all new contracts and all new IRBs and so on, but so it really depends on your institution.
Can grantees access the teacher UTOP scores if they request?
Well, no, I guess we answered that one. The answer is that the UTOP scores are not available.
What percentage of the classroom observation videos from second year would be available to grantees?
Are we cycling back through? Yeah, sounds like that could be the list of questions for today. Let's see if we get some new ones.
Yeah, I think.
Here's one that looks new.
For IRB approval, would we have to go through our home institution? Another one, this project would normally be exempt from IRB review in my institution. Is this acceptable, or should I request an IRB review to get an IRB approval letter?
Yeah, you should. You would. Your assertion that it's exempt is not. It's not sufficient. I mean, we would need to see the exemption. We need proof that you have gone through all the steps for IRB approval.
Given the restrictions on the use of the data from particular machines, would it be possible to have new raters rate video on a new instrument? For example, if there are 10 raters working at one time to rate videos, will they all be able to have access at once to the video data enclave?
You want to take that?
Things are set up so that multiple research members of a team can work with multiple instances. Each would have their own virtual desktop. So technically there's no problem with this particular plan. Each person would need their own dedicated machine in a location where we could give it a static IP address. So that sort of scenario could be set up the way it was described in this question. I understand that the scoring only focused on a section of 30 minutes. However, do the video files capture the entire lesson?
Yes. Well, I mean, more or less. I can't swear with that 100% of the videos capture the entire lesson, but most videos extend beyond the 30-minute period and are have naturalistic breaks.
Can you say a little bit more about the secure computer system requirements you mentioned at the beginning of the session? Specifically, I'm thinking about a computer I have that contains restricted use IES data. It seems I would ideally store met quantitative data, not video, on this same computer because it is password protected and stationary. But by IES rules, that computer is not internet accessible. So I'm thinking this means I would need an entirely new desktop computer for this project so that I could access the virtual data enclave. Is that accurate? You do need a computer that has internet access. That computer would be at your institute's project office, and so I would see you needing to get yourself set up with that computer, probably distinct from your one with your IES data, specifically because you need internet connection. Just a note, you do not download this data. The data always stays in that virtual environment. Is HLM software also embedded in this virtual enclave? If not, can we run the data with the software installed in the local computer?
So the answer is no, HLM is not installed, partly because there's nothing you can do that could be done on HLM that couldn't be done on the programs that are already there. On the other hand, if there's enough demand or a strong preference, we could probably put HLM on there so that you would be running it inside the virtual data enclave. And that's where, you're working on a remote desktop. That's what's doing the processing. So you can't take the data out and run it on your local computer.
We're very interested in hearing from people about their interest in programs like HLM so that we can be prepared as far ahead of time with those kinds of tools as needed. Is it possible to add a video analysis software example, Irb Observer, to the VDE? If not, is there a video coding software already available? I'd like to suggest two options that might address this question. One is that if there is enough interest in particular kinds of software, we have talked about making those a part of our standard packet. And so again, we'd like to hear from as many people as have an interest in this as we are out there. The other thing that I'll say is you are able to watch video splitting your screen, and maybe with the other half of your screen, you are able to use software that is on your own computer. What you can't do is pull the quantitative data that was created as part of the MAP project to your own desktop. So one of your options would be to use your coding software that you're familiar with and then view the video, just having your own manual ways of making links to know maybe the ID between a video and a line of your data.
So let me talk a little bit about that. There's another couple of things we might say about that. So let's suppose you're pursuing the second option that Leslie discussed, which is you have the video running from the secure player on the top half of your screen, and you are coding locally on the bottom half. You can take the codes that you entered as a data set and put them in the VDE. Okay, the thing that you wouldn't be able to do outside the secure player is mark up video. So if you're looking for if you're looking for a program that actually marks up the videos, that would have to go inside the VDE, and we don't have anything like that. But again, we're happy to talk to people about that, and we do talk frequently with people and are trying to figure out what's the best way or what's the best software package we might want to put inside the VDE. And we're very pleased that there is a demand for the videos. So I wouldn't let the lack of a denoted video analysis package deter you from writing a proposal.
I would wish to use M+ to analyze the data set. Will this be allowed?
Yeah, I mean, again, we'd have to put M+ on there, but we have, and I don't, M+ has a somewhat quirky and expensive licensing system to it, but we have talked about M+ in particular because people in our own shop use M+ to analyze data like this. So we're fully aware that M+ is a potential thing to be added to these to the video data enclave.
Will I be able to load new statistics packages into the virtual data enclave?
Well, you will not load them in there, but the Icpsr staff, and right? You're talking about stat packages. Like, could I, if I had M+, my version of it, stick it inside the? No, the answer would be no. You have to request it, and then Icpsr has to go through the steps of having it appropriately licensed.
How long is a video session on average? 45 minutes to 50 minutes?
Yeah, rough guess, 45 minutes.
The proposal is limited single-space 6-page. Does this include tables and references?
Doesn't include references. There's no mention made of tables. I am having a hard time imagining why someone would want to produce a table. But if you absolutely have to have a table, I suppose you could stick it over on the side. But I'm having a hard time thinking these proposals are limited like this because they don't really require extensive tabular analysis. I can't, I'm having a hard time thinking of why you'd want tables. But if you can't live with it, then go ahead and put it as an appendix.
I'm wondering if you have guidelines for the IRB. For example, do you have a template for the use of video? Thank you. I will suggest that I think there are some resources that would help if you were putting together an IRB, for example, a copy of consent forms. And so on a by request basis, we would be happy to receive your question, and we would be happy to begin working with you to meet requests and needs as you develop an IRB. And again, that could be at any time. Will only 3 people per grant be allowed access to the data set, or can we get permission for more researchers to access the data? I think Brian answered this earlier. We gave a guideline that we thought perhaps there would be about 3 researchers on any applications research team, and we can accommodate larger groups. That was just our guess on an average size. Data that can be used our first 2-year period, 09, 10, and 10, 11, but data will not be available before award, right? Not even sample data. It is correct. You won't be able to work with this data. It's in the Virtual Data Enclave until you have a contract and you have a data use agreement. What we are making available are code books that give you a very good picture of what's inside the data. So rather than seeing sample data, you will be able to get a good picture of what the data is like by looking at code books on the website.
It's the best we can do. We cannot make the data available until people have gone through the grants process. We recognize that that can be a constraint on research planning, but it's the best we can do, and proposals will be reviewed accordingly.
The original Plato has 13 elements in the MET. Only 6 dimensions are used. However, later at different places of the website, it says 7 or 8 elements are used in the MET. I am very confused by the inconsistent information. Would you help me clarify this?
So send a message to Judy on showing where you are getting confused, and we'll do our best to get you unconfused.
And I'll just note domains, and there are dimensions in terms of different terminology discussed. One of the possible topics for research includes new scoring of existing MET videos and the cognitive processes of those who score the videos. What are the procedures for sharing a subset of videos with new scorers? Is this allowable in the secure desktop, or can they only be shared with the 3 members of the research team? So long as you can create accounts for any of the individuals that are part of your research, including individuals who might score video, we can give them their logins, their passwords, and make it possible for them to work with the video. Can I include equipment such as a desktop computer in the grant budget?
Yes.
Can other analysis programs be pulled into the virtual desktop? We've talked about several of these. And Brian was saying, an individual can't pull their own items directly into the Virtual Data Enclave, but by interacting with the team, we can receive requests such as that and work with you to come up either with the solution of getting an application or files into the VDE on your behalf, or recommending alternatives that might end up being good alternatives. Can we add graduate students and undergraduate students as personnel for this grant?
Well, yes, I suppose so.
Can we submit grants that include researchers from multiple institutions? If so, all contracting would go to the institution of the PI, correct? Would an IRB be required at each institute for each researcher?
So the University of Michigan would have a subcontract with the PI's institution. The PI's institution would have subcontracts with all the participating institutions. There could be one IRB of record, but everyone who is using the data must be recognized and protected by an IRB. So IRBs differ in how they do that. Some institutions always want to have their researchers covered by their IRB. Others are happy to have researchers covered by somebody else's IRB, but all the researchers have to be covered by an IRB, and it won't be the University of Michigan IRB.
Will CC data be available to grantees upon request? And I think you mean the control file?
No, I think that's the survey of the enacted curriculum data. That data are not part of the core grantee data files. I suppose they could be made available upon request. It's a very limited sample. Just so you know, it's a very limited sample.
Can two budgets be proposed? That is, one budget if I stay at my current institution and one if I get a new position at a new institution.
Well, no, I think you should propose a single budget from a single institution.
Will grantees be restricted?
Just because at some point the university needs to be in a subcontracting relationship with an institution. And you don't want to do this twice unless you move. So, you know, I couldn't see that. We couldn't accept two different budgets.
I might just ask that there's a possibility we could work with one mechanism. In submitting your proposal application, you submit a letter of intent from your institution. You would need to get a letter of intent from two institutions if you tried to work with a mechanism like described in that question.
Right.
Will grantees be restricted to using variables included in the proposal?
It's not a contract, so supposing you say, I'd like to do X, and then you end up not doing it exactly as you said in the proposal. Most people don't do exactly what they said in their proposal. It's a grant, so there's leeway for people. I mean, it would be striking, and you know, you have to submit a report midway through. If we found out you weren't doing anything that was even remotely like the proposal that you had initially submitted, we might not want the grant to continue. But you're not committed in any exact way to what you proposed. Grantees have leeway, of course.
You mentioned that we need a letter of support from our institution. I didn't see this requirement in the RFP. Can you elaborate on this?
It's not a letter of support. It's a letter of commitment, and it's in the RFP. Just look. You'll see that you need that letter. You know, that letter of commitment is commonly written by institutions upon submission of a proposal to any agency. So the people who handle grants and contracts at your institution will know exactly what we mean when we say that.
The online application site requires applicants to specify the institute where the highest degree was awarded. I got my PhD from other countries. It's not on the options list. What should I do?
Isn't there an other on that? If it's not, you know, talk to Judy on. Send Judy on an email about that.
Yeah, we're kind of chuckling at ourselves that we need to make sure that we can make that possible. So,
right.
Can I have a co-PI who is also a junior professor?
Anyone who is listed on this grant has to meet the guidelines. Anyone who's listed as a PI or a co-PI has to meet the eligibility requirements for this grant.
To clarify, do we have to use a desktop computer or could we use a laptop? A laptop is fine if you can set it up in your project office where you can assign a static IP or fit it within a range of accepted IPs for your project office. Is there any information available about school and principal demographic characteristics?
So we're having a discussion about the school level demographic characteristics. It is likely that there will be demographic data on the schools, like the percentage of kids in different ethnic groups, the percentage of kids on free and reduced price lunch, the percentage who are considered English language learners. Those data, however, are likely to be provided not as continuous variables, but broken into quartiles. And this is an ongoing discussion that we're having with Icpsr about identifiability. With respect to principal demographic characteristics, I am sorry that I do not, off the top of my head, know which principal demographic characteristics will be included. They would have been gathered from the principal survey, and when the school level code book comes out, you'll be able to see what, if any, principal demographic characteristics are on the data set.
Similarly, could we export a covariance table to analyze data with list row?
Yeah, I would think that a covariance, it's like a covariance matrix. I would think that a matrix would not have any identifiable data. It's just an interesting question that I will have to take up with the VDE people. It's a good question. It's like an interesting twist.
I believe that there will be issues like this that come up as people are working in the VDE, and each of them is submitted through the Airlock process, reviewed by the research team. And so Brian and others will receive questions like this throughout the period. It's good to see them ahead of time. Should we propose a video coding software in our proposal in anticipation that you might add one in the package?
Well, I mean, I guess if it were me and I were making a proposal, I would propose, if I didn't require a particular kind of video coding package, I might just mention some examples of video coding packages I could work with. If I actually required a specific program, I would say that's the program I want to use.
Does your secure computer have to be a desktop or laptop? Can we keep the data set we created in another computer for further studies?
Well, no, you can't take any data out of the Enclave.
What is the average number of students in a math classroom?
Go to the section files.
I just want to confirm that I can propose to use M+.
Oh, yeah, you can propose M+, absolutely.
Do you have a when the video information file codebook will be available on the website?
No, I guess I don't. I mean, so that I'm pretty sure that that is being worked on and processed now. So I'm thinking that those data should be available soon. But why don't you send that exact question to Judy on, and we'll route it to a cognizant person and get the right answer for you, okay?
If I would like to study areas that are not relevant to my proposed research question, is it allowed, or is there any process to discuss any extension?
Well, I think I have said this in previous webinars. An extension beyond the time of your grant will require you to get access to the data all over again. So, right, you will get access to the data through this IDARS process for the period of your contract with the University of Michigan. However, at the end of that contract period, there is every expectation, and in fact more than every expectation, the Video Data Enclave will now be open to researchers in general, and you would have to go through that process to get the access again. Now that's not a competitive process, it's just a process of making sure you have your IRBs and your data security arrangements in place. So, what you do with the data during the time period that you are granted access, if you want to work beyond what you proposed, I can't see that as being a problem.
And I think IRB is the key term here, that what you're doing is covered within an IRB, or that you amend an IRB and we receive notice to stay up to date on that. How can we access MET technical reports?
I'm not sure what is being referred to as a MET technical report. Any MET report that is, there are no reports beyond those that you are looking at that are available to the public. So the only thing that you can access is what is on the metproject.org website.
So there's a user's guide, and then there are a sequence of technical reports that the Gates Foundation with their MET partners have put together that are these technical reports, and you can get links from the website to those.
I think that this is a comment about the lack of technical detail in the existing MET reports. And I find that while it is true that those technical reports, or that the MET reports lack extensive technical detail, it is not impossible to decipher what was done technically from those reports. And there is no technical report sitting in the background that we could refer you to. And that, whoops, let's see, looks like we have another question just appeared, huh?
What are expectations for power estimation for analysis with subgroups, example, students with disabilities?
Well, I mean, my expectation is that you would have a sense of the extent to which the numbers of cases that you were doing an analysis on was adequate for the analytic purposes you wanted to use them for. Now, I can think of a lot of analyses for which the data you have, you couldn't possibly figure out power. I mean, if you need things like variance components, and which you might if you're in multi-level models to think about power, you sort of don't have the power, or you don't have the data you need to do a formal power analysis. So as I believe I said in the last webinar, a formal power analysis is not required. On the other hand, you should address the issue of whether your sample size is adequate to the analytic purposes that you want to put it to, and give us some sense, if not through a formal power analysis, of what kinds of conclusions you think you can draw with the sample size you have.
We think we're at the bottom of our list of questions. There might be just 15 seconds if you have another question that you wanted to submit before we completely close down this question and answer period.
So that looks like all of the questions. Again, we thank you for your attendance. We hope that these webinars and the resources we're providing are helpful to you. We wish you the best of luck as you plan. And if you have questions, the best route is to send an email to Judy on at the NAED website. Judy's email is at the NAED website, and Judy is very good about routing those questions to the cognizant party. And we have gotten lots of questions over the course of this last few weeks about the proposal or about technical aspects of the proposal, and we're happy to answer those questions as best we can, so feel free to ask additional questions. In the meantime, I think that brings us to the conclusion of the third webinar, and I'm going to send it back now to Linda.
Thank you, Brian, Leslie, and Judy. Again, this concludes the third webinar, and as noted at the beginning of this session, the recording of this webinar and the previous two, as well as slides for all three of these, will be found on Icpsr's YouTube channel. We expect that this third webinar will be posted either very late this afternoon or at latest on Monday. So you can go out and search YouTube if you desire our channel. You'll just search for Icpsr and you'll find our channel, or just watch your emails and that will let you know when it has been posted. Thank you again, and have a great weekend.